I talked to Senator Grove about it this morning, which is indicative of my desire to see what we can do.
Last week, Governor Newsom went against some Democrats in the Assembly and backed Republican State Senator Shannon Grove's effort to toughen penalties for child sex traffickers.
I'm just incredibly pleased that this was able to get out of the Public Safety Committee and is on its way to appropriations.
Some of the Democrats first tried to stop that from happening. Let's talk about that issue and more with the Republican Assembly Leader, James Gallagher. We've talked via Zoom many times, but it's your first time in the House. Nice to have you in the studio, and welcome back to The Issue Is.
Yeah, great to be here, Alex. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's talk about that issue. Child sex trafficking got so much attention around the world, really. What was really happening behind the scenes on that front?
Well, look, I mean, this is just a common sense policy that we need to hold, to the greatest extent possible, child traffickers accountable. It hasn't been considered a serious felony. We've been trying actually for years to make it a serious felony. And I think people were just outraged when they saw that this bill that had bipartisan support, 40-0 in the Senate, get stalled in the Public Safety Committee.
How does that happen? I mean, what's really happening there?
It really highlights just how radical these public safety committees have gotten in the legislature. They will not support any new policy that creates a new crime or new penalties for crime. And they've taken this to just a radical extent, to where a bill that, again, has bipartisan support, overwhelming support, can get stalled in this committee.
So what happens to that bill going forward? Because now it's technically out of the committee, but it's not a done deal yet.
Yeah, so now it has to go to appropriations, and there's still some threats that they're going to try and change the bill, water it down. Senator Shannon Grove is saying, hey, I'm going to stand strong because we need this policy in place to better protect our children and to ensure that we have accountability for these monsters who are victimizing. California has some of the highest rates of human trafficking in the nation. So we need this policy. We hope there's not going to be any shenanigans as it goes to appropriations, and ultimately it'll be voted on the Assembly floor.
What does it say to you that Governor Newsom actually sided with you and not with the Democrats in his own party?
Oh, we were grateful for the support. And I think a lot of people weighed in, and certainly the public was outraged. And we as Republicans, we want to push for common sense reforms. This criminal justice experiment that we've had in California is a failure, and we can see that in every city. Violent crime is on the rise. Fentanyl crisis that we've really been trying to push for tougher penalties for dealers. We have to have these things in place, and so we're going to continue to push for that, and I think we'll have success.
Somebody else that was pushing back on the Democrats on that committee is the brand new Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas,
right.
Who is somebody that you have to work pretty closely with in your job. What do you make of Speaker Rivas, and what's the nature of your relationship going into this?
Well, I've had a good relationship with Robert. We both are from rural areas and represent areas that have issues with agriculture, water. So we've already worked together, and I'm looking forward to working with him as him being the Speaker. On this particular issue, as I said, we really pushed the envelope, and we were saying we were actually going to force a vote on the floor of the Assembly to bring this to the full body. He called me that morning and said, hey, we are going to hold an urgency hearing on this in the Public Safety Committee, and I give him credit for that. So that bill was able to move forward, and I think it was an example of how we can work together to pass reasonable policy. But make no mistake about it, that wouldn't have happened had Republicans not pushed for this policy to be heard, this bill to get passed.
And had there not been such a public outcry as well, a reminder that people need to speak up if they want to see something happen. So Robert Rivas is replacing Anthony Rendon, who was the Speaker for a long time before that. He was on our show as he was about to leave that office and talked about you when talking about homelessness. Here's some of what he had to say.
I think it's fair for people to be critical. I think it's fair for people to be concerned. One thing that Jim Gallagher, the minority leader, and I agreed on at the outset of this year was we need to look at accountability matrices. We need to make sure that the cities and local governments are spending that money effectively. But people are right to be frustrated and concerned about homelessness.
In your view, has the state of California failed when it comes to homelessness?
I'd say we as a state have tried to do quite a bit. The sort of collective whole, the state and the municipal governments working together. I'd say we have a lot of work to do for sure. But yeah, the problem seems to be increasing.
Problem seems to be increasing. I mean, would you say the state has failed when it comes to homelessness?
I mean, absolutely. I don't think there's any other way you can look at it. And, again, Anthony was somebody I worked with as well. We did agree that we need more accountability and oversight when it comes to this money and how it's being spent. But the other thing is we need a change in policy.
Right. I mean, what does that look like? Because clearly, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We keep pumping more money into homelessness, and the problem gets worse over and over again. What sort of radical change do we need to see when it comes to homelessness so we have a different result?
Well, we can look to other states. So, for example, Texas, is spending about $800 to $900 per homeless person. And they've actually gotten results because the policies they're putting in place are actually reducing homelessness, getting people off of the streets. California is spending over $10,000 per homeless person. We spent $17 billion on this problem only to have it actually get worse. So we favor, Republicans, getting people off of the streets, having enforcement on encampments, and ensuring that people get into actual services that are going to empower them out of homelessness instead of enabling them in homelessness.
I mean, because we had a situation not that far from where our studio is in Santa Monica, where the Santa Monica City Council member was attacked by a homeless person this week. And his response was, we talk so much about our compassion for the unhoused. How about compassion for the housed? Compassion for people that don't feel safe after paying tax dollars and trying to do the right thing. What does that actually look like? I mean, is that a quote-unquote shelter-first approach instead of housing-first approach, meaning get people off the streets immediately, even if it doesn't mean some beautiful apartment?
Well, I think it means like giving people the option of saying, hey, we have a place for you to go that is going to have wraparound services, is going to have mental health treatment for those that need it, that's going to have drug treatment for those that need it. And we have a lot of those resources, and I think working regionally with counties and cities to have these regional approaches is a more effective way of addressing the crisis. Instead of spending more and more money on really expensive housing, in LA County here alone, $760,000 a unit to house one homeless person. That's not an effective use of our dollars. We can band together with local governments to ensure that we're actually resolving this problem, getting people off of the streets. And for those that are not going to accept those services, yes, there needs to be enforcement. There needs to be accountability. You can't just live on our streets and victimize people on the streets. It's not acceptable.
Of course, right now the courts say unless you have enough housing for people, you can't force somebody into housing. Right now, we need more housing in order to do that. Let's talk about another problem, which you could sort of say the definition of insanity, which is Republicans' success when it comes to California politics. Because right now you're in the minority, the super minority. The Democrats have super majorities in both houses. What have Republicans done wrong to put yourselves in this position, and how do you fix it going forward?
Well, I think, for one, we haven't really gotten out there and told people what we want to do as Republicans. And so when I came in as leader a year ago, I said, we're going on the offensive. No longer are we going to play defense to the Democrats. We're going to go out there and say, here are the problems, and here's how we would solve them. And we rolled out what I call the California Promise, where we had a list of policy proposals, how we would tackle homelessness, how we would deal with the fentanyl crisis, how we would deal, with the affordability crisis in California. We need to lower people's costs. We took on the gas tax and said we should suspend that and do something right now to help lower people's costs. And we made the Democrats be the ones to say no. Because I think for too long, Republicans have always been in that position. They're positioning themselves and pushing us to be the party of no. Mm-hmm. Well, we want them to be the party of no, and they have been. Because we've been proposing these things. That's what we saw in fentanyl this year. They said no, and ultimately the people were with us, and they had to move these things forward. The pressure was built, and we saw that again with child trafficking and good policy that's going to hold these monsters accountable.
Do you think that the state party is too closely associated with Donald Trump, and in a state where he lost by 30 points, that still hurts you guys in these local elections?
Look, I think Republicans, especially right now, with the new leadership that we've had with Jessica Patterson as our chairwoman, we have positioned ourselves as the problem solvers in California, as the people who have real solutions to the problems facing California. And that we're saying, look, these need the focus: affordability, homelessness, public safety, crime's gotten out of control. Let's change that. Let's actually do something about it. And so what we're trying to tell the California voters is take another look at us. Take another look at this Republican Party. party who has solutions. And look, you have to admit that the Democratic supermajority has not been good for California. Homelessness exploding, crime on the rise, your cost of living exploding at more and more every day. Nothing that they have done has lowered your cost of living in California. And I see that as one of the greatest crises that we are facing right now.
Are you going to endorse in the Republican primary?
I have not endorsed. I'll be looking at these candidates, and we'll hear from all of them. I think you got to give people the chance to get out there and talk to the voters, see who's connecting, what are the issues they really want to focus on.
And the California primary is going to be really important. It's in March. It's early, more delegates than anywhere else in the country, so candidates come here and come on our show. Okay, let's talk a moment about you, get people a chance to get to know you a little bit.
Sure.
You posted a picture on Instagram that I thought was really hilarious. This was your daughter's prom. You're standing behind with a gun, sort of making a point about protecting everybody. What was this moment like for you as your daughter's getting a little older?
It was a having fun moment.
Yeah.
My daughter, is 16. This was her prom. And I actually like her boyfriend quite a bit. He's a good guy. We fished together. And, so I said, hey, this would be kind of fun to do this. Overwhelmingly people got it. They got the joke. Certainly had some folks out there who were saying some, pretty horrendous things, actually. And that's unfortunate. I mean, in this politics, sometimes we get people that, just say outrageous things about your family. And, so I didn't appreciate that very much. But this was a light moment, with my family, who I love very much. I have 5 kids with my wife, Jana.
Well, let's talk about that. Father of 5. I don't know how you do that and anything else. So how do you balance that? And how do those kids sort of shape your worldview in terms of what you do as leader?
It shapes everything. So my wife and I, we've known each other for a long time. We've been married for over 20 years now. She is my partner in all this. I couldn't do the job that I do without my wife. And so, look, it's always a challenge in politics to find the right balance. But I think we do, and I think my kids also know that, we're fighting for something better. I'm the 6th generation Californian, and I want to ensure there's a 7th generation that's living here and enjoying the great opportunities and benefits of the state. And so that's why I do the work, and they know that. It's a family effort, it's a team effort, and I think so far we've been doing a good job of representing the people of the 3rd District.
Before you go, we do something on the show called Personal Issues. This is where we put 30 seconds up on the clock and we do rapid fire of your cultural favorites.
Right.
So here, we're going to see how this goes. Last time we stumped you on a few. What is your favorite band or musical artist?
Dropkick Murphys.
What's your favorite book of all time?
That's a tough one. Grapes of Wrath is up there.
Good one.
Yeah.
California. Who's your favorite athlete?
Was Michael Jordan. I would say these days, Dak Prescott.
Oh, very nice. Best part of being a Californian?
Just the legacy of opportunity, in California.
Very nice. And who's your role model?
My father, who worked very hard to make sure that, myself and my brothers had every opportunity.
Very nice. James Gallagher, great to have you here. I hope you come and visit us here more often. Up next, we're going to take you to a big honor for Sheila E. in Hollywood. So we're playing some of her music with Prince as we go to break. Next time, Dropkick Murphys for you. Okay. Thanks so much for being here. We'll be back with more. The issue is right after this. Thanks, Assembly member.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.